Now, I get asked this question by quite a lot of people, and I get asked in particular, look, I'm living in a place like Nigeria, Pakistan, or another place, even Venezuela. I get asked this by both expats and indeed people who are locals who want to invest. And what they ask me is it difficult for me to invest overseas? And the simple answer is it depends. In other words, if you are living in a place which is developed, which has low, levels of money laundering, it is true to say more platforms will accept you, and you won't have to do as many paperwork requirements. In other words, if you're living in, say, the UK, Germany, Canada, any country really which has a per capita income of over $40,000, or indeed the very high income places like Norway, Qatar, whatever, usually you are not asked for money laundering requirements, i.e. like proof of your pay slips or indeed those kind of things, unless it's quite a big premium. In comparison, in a place like Nigeria, as an example, there are many platforms that will accept. Not as many as, for example, in, say, Germany or Canada, but still many platforms accept. However, when it comes to so-called blacklisted countries, they could be countries which are maybe either restricted from the world economy to some extent, like Iran, after the United States basically said that they would sanction any company dealing with people or companies in Iran, or a country which is highly associated with money laundering more than Nigeria, for example, maybe Somalia. In that case, it is very difficult to actually get platforms to agree to, have you as a client. There are exceptions though. For example, let's say you're an expat or even you're a returnee living in a place like Iran, but your employer is paying you to an account outside of Iran. So let's, for example, say you're a Canadian who's working at the Canadian International School, or a British person, working in the British School of Tehran or whatever, and you are paid into a local account, maybe a local British account or Canadian account because of the political situation, in which case it's far easier. But if you're actually moving the money from Iran, it's much more difficult. And that's just one example. As I said, Somalia is another example. But countries which maybe have, let's say, a slightly unfavorable international reputation, it's a big misconception that nobody will accept people who are living in this country. I've had people from the likes of Nigeria, Pakistan say, well, surely no one can accept me outside of my own country because my country is associated with X, Y, and Z, money laundering and so on. That just isn't the case. What often happens is there's a sliding scale. I'll give you an example. One of the providers that we, or shall I say, I deal with, basically for countries like Japan and others, they have a $1 million limit. In other words, below $1 million, they don't ask for too many documents. There's a lot of other countries where it's $250,000, but for some countries associated with corruption, it might be $100,000. But for smaller premiums, it's a misconception to say that there's loads of countries where basically you just can't buy something like an index fund or investments overseas. There's only a few blacklisted countries where it's incredibly difficult to get money out of the country and incredibly difficult to actually send money outside. But for most countries that have got, let's say, slightly unfavorable reputation, but they're not super unfavorable, usually you can get access to many platforms. It's just a little bit more restrictive compared to countries where basically thousands of platforms will accept you. Okay, everyone, have a good day.